Our pigeons, like avian athletes, are meticulously prepared for their weekly flights. Depending on the race distance, we adjust their feed accordingly. For short sprints, we provide a lighter diet, while for middle distances, a bit more is given. As for long races, peanuts are usually included to provide the birds with additional energy. However, the question remains, are we meeting their nutritional needs adequately? Our feeding practices often rely on intuition and personal experience, but doubts linger. What if the wind changes unexpectedly? Today, we seek more information and ask whether any research has been conducted on the energy requirements of pigeons during flight. What role do proteins, carbohydrates, sugars, and fats play in their diet? Researchers worldwide have begun conducting fascinating tests on pigeons fitted with transmitters on their backs. These transmitters, along with satellite technology, enable us to track the birds' flight paths and gather valuable data. Although this field is still in its early stages, we eagerly anticipate the insights it will provide. At present, the transmitters are still too heavy to provide realistic and reliable information, so we must rely on our existing knowledge. Nevertheless, science has made progress. In wind tunnels at the University of Ghent in Belgium, pigeons were tested while flying against the wind, unable to advance even a meter. By fitting them with a mask to collect their exhaled breath, researchers could precisely analyze the fuel they utilized. These experiments yielded interesting results. During the first 10 minutes of flight, pigeons primarily rely on their carbohydrate reserves, stored in the white muscle, to gain altitude and speed. Once these carbohydrates are depleted, the birds switch to using fat stored in their bodies, specifically in the red muscle fibers, for the next approximately 50 minutes. These blood fats consist of roughly 97.5% unsaturated fatty acids and serve as the fuel for the journey back home. The light blood fats in their bodies are derived from the carbohydrate and fat-rich grains consumed during the last 3 meals. If this fuel is exhausted after 1 hour, the birds gradually shift to utilizing the fat reserve stored in their red muscle fibers. During flight, a pigeon consumes approximately 3 to 3.5 grams of fat per hour, but the exact amount varies based on the flight's difficulty and the efficiency of the pigeon's own system. Some pigeons have heavy, robust muscles like bodybuilders, while others have long, slender muscles like marathon runners. The former utilize energy more efficiently. With this newfound knowledge of a pigeon's energy expenditure per hour, can we calculate their specific fat requirements based on the fat content of their feed? Let's consider an example. Suppose we are preparing our pigeons for the Orleans race, which typically takes 6 hours of flying. As previously mentioned, pigeons rely on carbohydrates as their fuel during the first hour of flight, followed by the utilization of fat reserves in the red muscle fibers for the remaining 5 hours. Let's assume an average fat consumption of 3.0 grams per hour. Therefore, the birds would require 5 hours times 3.0 grams equals 15 grams of fat stored in their red muscle fibers. By knowing the fat content of our feed, we can determine if it provides sufficient energy. For instance, if our feed contains 5% fat and we typically provide 200 grams of feed per bird per week, we would only be supplying 10 grams of fat reserves, which is insufficient for this race. On the other hand, a feed with 9% fat, equivalent to 18 grams of fat, would be too rich for this particular flight. Claims such as this feed has the ideal fat content are relative and context dependent. We can adjust the energy level of the feed by adding a low-fat diet. There are many reasons to buy my racing pigeon method. Here are some of the best reasons. You will get excellent results. It's a very simple system to use. It's affordable. I have had over 400 first prize winners. It's adaptable to any situation. You can use it with any racing method, natural, widowhood, young birds. It's a very effective method. There is no need to spend a lot of money on fancy pigeon products. It's a reliable system and it is foolproof to use. Professional athletes, race horses, take the same products. There is science behind this, not just hearsay. It is all to do with red blood cells and oxygen in the blood. Without that, a pigeon will not race well, or an athlete will not win a race. If he has low oxygen in his blood, the above is fact and is 100% science. There are a few things you can do to improve your chances of winning at racing pigeons. One of the most important things is to learn as much as you can about the sport. You'll need to know the different types of pigeons, how to train them, and how to race them. Another key factor is practice. You'll need to be able to fly your pigeons competently in order to win races. And, of course, you'll need to have the funds to invest in racing pigeons and other racing equipment.